Goliath, AI features, experimenting with artificial intelligence. Advances in artificial intelligence have brought it to the point where we want to explore how we can incorporate those features into our applications. What you will see in this presentation is an exploration of ideas on what can be implemented and what possibilities exist. While playing with AI, we experimented with some basic actions. These are items simply to get our feet wet with possibilities and do not represent the limits of those possibilities. We focused on query-centric actions, specifically how queries can be enhanced and elevated. Beyond this focus, there are endless possibilities and opportunities on how AI can interact with data. An area of focus for experimentation was on query enhancement. We looked into ways to quickly format, improve, and fix queries. To explore, we also included ways to refine feedback. Anything is possible and not limited to these experiments. Everything you see here is experimental and a glimpse of what potentially can be used. These features are not available and are pending further exploration and feedback. Let's start with a query that can be better formatted and have the AI format it. The AI returns a response that replaces the previous query in the editor. Now we have a better formatted query. Another thing we can do is improve the query. So we have our query here, and we can request for it to be improved. Now this improvement is going to be interpreted by the AI. And again, the response is going to be here and replace what we currently have as the query. So here we have a screenshot of the previous query before the artificial intelligence improved it. I'm showing these so that we can identify the changes that were made. Now remember, the idea of improvement is interpreted by the artificial intelligence, and in this case, most of the query stayed the same. The only change was that the table for Gen X was moved to the top, and then the inner join was moved below it. Everything else primarily stayed the same. So this is not a very drastic change, but it's not always going to be the same result for this query or even for different queries. The idea of improvement is interpreted by the artificial intelligence, and we might want to provide some input to give it guidance on how to further make these changes. So after we format and improve the query, we can refine the query. So this will give the artificial intelligence more direction in how to make a change. We're given a little bit more control than the quick options that were previously used. As an example, let's refine the format by defining indentation as 2 spaces. We can see the change here, and it replaces the previous query with the response. Let's further refine the query. In this case, let's compact the query. Again, the response replaced our previous query, and you can see how the format has changed to make the syntax more compact. These are just 2 examples of an endless number of possibilities for refinement. Let's explore how artificial intelligence may help us in fixing our errors. Let's return to our original query, and in this case, I'm intentionally making an error by referencing an alias that doesn't exist. You can see in the dry run, we get the error. So for the AI, I want it to fix this query. Let's take a look. The response replaces our incorrect query, and you can see the changes to restore the corrected alias, and now we have a valid query. Further experiments focused on query exploration, taking a query and identifying its structure and logic. Providing data, we explored how AI can provide a list of questions that could then be turned into a query that answered those questions. As mentioned, these are just a few examples of an endless possibility of experiments. In the previous examples, we explored options for query enhancements. Now we want to explore options for obtaining information on query syntax and data. Let's start with the explain syntax. This can take the whole query, or if you highlight a portion, a fragment of the query, and provides feedback on it. The feedback is listed in the panel, and we can further refine it. As you see here, we have our feedback. It displays the syntax of each different component and describes them. And we can add a refinement to it. For example, let's say that we want to elaborate and provide more details. We resubmit it, and the response will then show in an updated list. So you can see here, it's explaining, providing more details on the select statement, showing more information on the inner join and the where clause. We could add anything in the refinement. It's really up to our imagination how we want to modify this. We can also describe the logic of the query. This is a tweak to our previous experiment, but it gives us a response with a different focus. We can see how we can make minor adjustments in our ask to the AI and get a different response. And like the previous example, if we want to further refine the response, we can. So here you see that the focus is on more of the logic as opposed to the syntax, and it's describing for us what that logic is. And as mentioned, we can go through that cycle of further refinement. Finally, let's explore generating a query that answers questions based on the data. First, we provide a list of tables. This can be as seen here within a query, or we could simply just list the tables in the editor. The response gives us a list of questions that can be asked with the data that's provided. And if we're not satisfied with this list, we have an option to include more. But what we want to do is look through this list and choose one of them to generate a query that will then answer that question. So let's talk about what is the most common variant classification of the semantic mutation dataset. So we would choose number 4. And in choosing, we click OK, and this will append that query in the editor. We see what question we're asking, and when we run it, it provides us with an answer to the question that we've asked. And in this case, what is the most common variant classification in the semantic mutation dataset? We see the mutation and the count. We briefly covered some possibilities of what AI integration into our applications can offer, from enhancing queries by formatting, improving, and fixing errors to describing logic and syntax. We also worked with refining the results and generating a query based on data questions. But this is just the start, and we would love to hear from you. Is this something you would be interested in? Let us know. Give us feedback on how you would use AI in Potencio and what you would like to see. Take a survey and share your thoughts. The QR code will direct you to the survey to provide your feedback.